Usually, I have bad luck with microphones. No, they're all off. Oh yeah, okay, one's off. Only one Abuna is meant. Yes. Alright, so this one's good, I think. How you guys doing? I love your church. I love your church, and I love your chapel, too. It's beautiful. And just to get a show of hands, what grades do we have here? Or uni? Or grads? Uni. Let's go for uni first. Uni, okay. High school. Going once, okay. Grads. All right, okay, very good. So, in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. So Abuna asked me to talk about a character from the Bible, and I was thinking, what should we talk about? And thank God, you arrived at Joseph, right? Which Joseph are we going to talk about, do you think, today? Not the carpenter, no. So I knew that you're, SMSJ, so we're going to talk about the other Joseph, because you have Joseph the carpenter, so we're going to talk about the other one, Joseph of Egypt. You guys know Joseph of Egypt? What do you know about Joseph of Egypt? He had what, sorry? A lot of brothers. Yes, how many? He had 11 brothers. Okay, very good. Okay, what else do you know about Joseph? He was favored. How? His dad gave him a colored coat, right? A rainbow jacket. Okay, yeah. His dad gave him a colored coat. Okay, what else? What else do you know about Joseph? Yes. He can interpret dreams. Very good. Okay, getting there. What else do you know about Joseph? That's it? That's all you know about Joseph? Funny. No, his name was Joseph. I like it. That's good. His name was Joseph. What else? He was betrayed by his brothers. How? Huh? He got sold for silver. Anyone knows how much? 20 pieces of silver. Okay. And then what happened after he was sold? No, too fast. What happened? What happened after he was sold? He was bought by Pharaoh. What's the name of the person who bought him? Potiphar. Okay, not BT4. Potiphar. Okay, so Potiphar bought him. Okay, and then what happened after? You guys are getting hungry, and Siyam is almost done. Chicken and lahmar on the way. Okay, what else? What happened? What did Potiphar's wife do? She accused him, okay? And then what happened? Wake up. He got sent to jail, okay? For being accused, wrongfully, of course, okay? What else? What happened after? There were two people. There was a wine bearer or a cup bearer and a bread maker. Who got his? Who was it? Was it the bread maker or the cup? The bread maker, and then the cup bearer. He interpreted both their dreams, right? And then what happened? 2 years later, something happened. Anyone knows what happened 2 years later? Pharaoh had a dream. The cupbearer remembered, I was supposed to put in a good word for you, but I didn't. I forgot. Right? 2 years later, what happens? He remembers. After Pharaoh gets the dream, then he remembers him. He brings him out, tells him about the dream, and what does Pharaoh do? He's very excited. He's very happy. He's very glad. Right? And then he makes him second in command. Right? And then what happens? What was the interpretation of the dream? 7A. You guys just give me like a little bit of, Huh? Yeah? 7 years of good, okay. And 7 years of famine, okay. So he interpreted the dream, and he told him what to do, And so he made him in charge of all of that, right? And then what happens after? Why? Because they want food. And then what happens when he sees his brothers? He recognized them, but they don't recognize him. Okay, very good. And then? You meant it bad for me, and then, but God meant it good, right? And then? He forgave them. He forgave them. And then he took care of them and his dad, right? He settled them down, and he took care of them during the famine and so forth. Sah. Very good. If I were to ask you what is the most important part of this whole story, or something that caught your attention, what would it be? After this long story. You know, it starts in Genesis 37 and it ends in Genesis 50, so many chapters, right? What's happening in those chapters? What caught your attention? About, of course, the character of Joseph. He was a righteous man, he was an honest man, but what else? What else? A very big imagination. I'll take that, I'll take it. I'll take whatever you give me at the moment. Someone like Joseph has been through so much, right? Being thrown in a pit, gets accused wrongfully. His brothers abandon him, right? They leave him, and comes at the end and he forgives him. I think this is one of the biggest things that Joseph is really, really good at, his ability to forgive. You know, God, we read this verse and God was with Joseph and he was a successful man. Not just the things that, he's accomplished, but also his ability to forgive. His ability, not to be able to hold a grudge. I imagine the very first thing that Joseph would have done after he became second in command, it was to do what? Yeah, I'm going to go to jail. What? He just came out of jail. Why would he go to jail? Hello? Okay. Huh? What would he do? You've been in jail for so long and people forgot about you. If it was me and I told someone, I'm going to interpret the dream with God's grace, and then please put in a good word for me with the Pharaoh, so I can come out early, and then that person comes 2 years later, he forgot about him. The very first person I'd be mad at would be brothers. Me and brother. The wine bear. Very good. The cup bear. Okay. Very good. What else? Who else? Who else would I be, holding a grudge against? Who else I would be, resentful towards? The brothers. The wife, Potiphar's wife. All these people. So he was in jail for so long. And he came out, and then none of that. We don't hear that he was resentful or unforgiving towards his brothers. We don't hear that he was, wanted to revenge Potiphar's wife. The cupbearer. He's in second in command. This cupbearer, he'd be, probably making him not a cupbearer anymore, making like, I don't know, banana juice or something else, right? He's probably going to be doing something completely different with this cupbearer, right? He's just, strip away that title of his, right? But he didn't. He did something completely different. So we wanted to, learn from this forgiveness of Joseph, and what is forgiveness? And this is what we want to talk about today a little bit, just to discuss it together. What is forgiveness? Bishop Yusuf of Southern United States, he says forgiveness primarily is a favor done to oneself. So if you forgive someone, it's a favor that you do to yourself first. You hear that, what do you mean? Like, the first time I read this, Sayyidina, thank you very much, but what do you mean? What do you mean it's a favor you do to yourself? You okay there? Yeah? You're good. Okay, very good. Just hungry or something, get you some food. So it's ridding ourselves from anger, ridding ourselves from resentment, right? And because if we don't, that anger that gets built up inside of us, it's like a cancer, and all of a sudden it destroys us. It destroys us. You know what they discovered today in Egypt? In one of the tombs, came on the news. They discovered a 3,000-year-old barrel of cheese. Do you know that? Today they discovered a 3,000-year-old barrel of cheese, and as you know, it's an Italian university that discovered that. You know, Italians love cheese, and they were very happy that they discovered the cheese. But something else came along with the that cheese, very old cheese. Like when you have old cheese, it's good quality. It has the deadliest bacteria in it because it was 3,000 years old. So anything that you harbor and you keep putting anger inside of you, at one point you are going not to only harm yourself but to harm those who are around you. Anyone remembers when you have like a nice looking apple and then you bite through it and then from the inside it's all brown, right? It wasn't put at the right environment. It wasn't the right environment. So forgiveness, first of all, like we heard, is ridding oneself from the anger. Forgiveness is starts by self-healing. Self-healing, what does that mean? Anytime you go on an airplane, the flight attendant comes up and she says, what does she say? Fasten your seat belt, right? In the event of a disaster, what's gonna drop from? Right? If you have a child next to you, you're gonna get 2 masks, not just one. We'll give you one on top of that. And then what's gonna happen? You're gonna take this mask and put the mask on yourself first, and then on the face of the child. And then I always thought to myself, did anyone think this? This is so counterintuitive. What are you talking about? I'm an Egyptian dad. I don't want to be putting the mask on myself first. I'd put the mask on my daughter's face first because I want her to survive, right? What are you talking about, right? Wouldn't you guys do the same? Yeah, this is the first thought that comes to your mind, is to put the mask on your loved one first before yourself. But think about it. If you don't put the mask on yourself first, you'll never be able to put or to help the person that's next to you. So don't be a hero. So really what is really needed here is to understand the first step is for us to heal first. When we're able to heal, when we understand the effect of forgiveness on us, when we know what forgiveness has done for us, when we ourselves were forgiven, when we became Christian, then we're able to forgive those who are around us. So we saw that with Joseph. It was very, very good model of forgiveness. Sadly, sometimes we don't do that. Sadly, it's a little bit different for us. So we talked about what forgiveness is, but what forgiveness is not is what we're going to talk about now, right? Did anyone hear of something called conditional forgiveness? It's like you say to someone who wronged you, you say, I will forgive you, but you have to change first. Does that even make sense? I'll forgive you, but you must change first. Don't we do that sometimes? There's another one called pseudo-forgiveness, right? I forgive you, but by the way, I'm better than you. Just I forgive you, but I'm better than you, right? And I'll remind you of that. There's another one called superficial forgiveness, which is I forgive you, but I want nothing to do with you. I forgive you, but just don't talk to me again. Is that real forgiveness? That's not real forgiveness, okay? So we find forgiveness always challenging. And for Joseph, what do you think could have been one of the some of the barriers for forgiveness for Joseph? Yes. Okay. But barriers. What could have stopped him from forgiving others? He became second in command. So pride could have stopped him. But it didn't. He was really humble. Pride could have stopped him. Sometimes when we're prideful, we, dare not even ask for forgiveness. We're too prideful to ask for forgiveness. Even if it's our fault, we're too prideful to ask. And sometimes we're even too prideful to bestow or to give or to forgive someone else, right? It makes us feel above, right? I would do the same sometimes because I'm special, and we say this to ourselves, right? But Joseph was humble. Another barrier is that he could have thought that they don't deserve to be forgiven. Sometimes we become a judge when we're supposed to be a lawyer. Sometimes we become a judge when we're supposed to be a lawyer. If you remember the story with Jonah, what happened with Jonah? What happened with Jonah? Fight? What's this? What happened with Jonah? What happened with the people of Nineveh? Yeah. The attitude was bad. Okay. Yeah, you got it. He got really mad. And God told him, is there a reason for you to be mad? And nobody says, just take me now, Lord, take me now. What is that supposed to mean? It's supposed to be happy that someone was forgiven, that someone knew, the way of the Lord. But he wasn't, right? So we learned from Joseph, when it happened with him, that he actually gave people a reason. He gave them a reason. He found a reason to forgive them. I'll tell you what he told them in Genesis 45. He says, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt, but now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. Can you see how beautiful Joseph is? He's so concerned about them. He's telling them, don't be grieved yourself, for God sent me here for a reason before you, to preserve life. It was all done for good. All things work out for good for those who love God. So this good attitude from Joseph is what will help us forgive not 7 but 70 times 7. You know what happened with Peter when he asked Jesus? What did he ask him? Yes. How many times should I forgive? And 7 times? Right? Why do you think he said 7 times? Why 7? Why not 1? Why not 10? Number of completion, but what else? Like I think Peter going into this was like, feeling that he was given like an extra tip, they say, devout Jews, it was a rule that if you forgive 3 times. 3 strikes and then you're out. Right? So when St. Peter went to Jesus and he told him 7, he was telling him what? I'll double it. I'll double it and a bit. And Jesus told him, do you want to keep track? 70 times 7. So what does that mean? It means what? Excuse me, sir. You know what? You've sinned against me. This is the 19th time, and I'm telling you, I'm watching for the 20th time. Don't do it again. This is really what Jesus is telling. He said, can you keep track? Can you keep counting? It doesn't make sense. Right? You have to have a heart that is loving, that is forgiving, that finds a reason to forgive. Another barrier to our forgiveness could be that I am not a regifter. Sometimes, have you ever received a gift that you wanted to regift? Anyone? You get one of those gifts and you're like, yeah, I'll put that on that here and then right? And that's not good. Not supposed to do that. That's not good etiquette, right? But with forgiveness, freely you have received, freely you shall give. This is the only gift that you can regift and don't feel guilty about it. The only gift that you can regift without feeling guilty about it. Another barrier to forgiveness is sometimes we lack love, It's common that the one you forgive the most is the one you love the most. You want me to prove it for you? If you're parking outside here, and then, this is your favorite parking spot, right? And you park there, and then you're pulling in, and as you're pulling in, Abuna Shnuda what comes in and he just takes the parking spot, right? What are you going to do? Habib Abuna, whatever you want, Abuna. You know what? You can take my car. Take my car. Take my keys. You know what? I love you, Abuna, so much you can park anywhere you want, right? But if Tant Suad or Uncle Midhat or something comes in and takes that parking spot, she took my parking spot. I'll show you, right? So the person who you love the most is the person that you forgive the most, right? I'll give you another story. Sometimes when at the beginning, right before the ordination, a couple of weeks before, 3 weeks before my ordination, it happened quite fast. And I went to get some hamal orban from Beit Lahm, Beit Lahm, where they make orban, right? So I went to grab some, and then the uncle there is like, no, you're not having any of this. And then a couple of weeks after I came back from the monastery, he said, Abuna, Habib Abuna, you can have the whole thing, right? The person you love the most is the person you forgive the most. But this is not how it's supposed to be. Christ says, love your enemies, right? Love your enemies, right? Forgiveness is love in action. Look at Joseph. When he saw his brothers, he wept. It says, so no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. He wept because he's being reunited with those whom he loves. And God, like I told you, gave us that commandment to love everyone, even though he shouldn't have been loving them. They deprived him from his parents. A lot of people, dealt him wrongfully, but then he loved them. So when does forgiveness become easy? Forgiveness becomes easy when I reach a certain level of understanding that as a Christian, it's a commitment of love and compassion and mercy. But often enough, we punish people instead of, loving them. We give them, you've done me wrong. I'm going to give you the silent treatment. You watch next time. And St. Paul writes in Colossians chapter 3, he says, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. So, and again, we said that forgiveness became easy when Joseph came to the understanding that God meant it for good. Forgiveness becomes easy when I understand that it's necessary for my own salvation. Anyone remember the parable of the unforgiving servant in Matthew chapter 18? Anyone remembers that? What was it about? Someone owed something. How much did they owe? 300 dinars. No. Keep going. 10,000 talents, right? You know what? How much is a talent? How much is a talent? How many denaries? No. 6,000 denaries. One denarii was the wage of one day, so the person had to work for 6,000 days. So that's a wage of 20 years. Think about it. Working 20 years straight to pay off one talent. You go to the master, and the master tells you, good job. Now you owe me 9,999 talents. It is a debt that is impossible to pay off, right? Yet he forgave him. And then when that person was forgiven, he saw on the way out, he saw the other person who owed him money. And how much did he owe him? 100 denaries. So that's a wage of how many days? 100 days, 3 months. Right? Someone owed a wage of, I don't know, multiply 20 by 999, I don't know, 20,000 years? I don't know. And a person who owed 3 months, and he didn't forgive him. Right? And this is why at the end Jesus says, he says, so my heavenly Father also will do to you if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses. That person that owed the 10,000 was locked up again. But then you come and tell me, Abuna, it's easier said than done. I get angry too quickly and I feel resentment towards people. The very first myth that we come across is that to forgive is to forget. What do I mean by that? To forgive is to forget. When we sin against God, Isaiah 4:25 says, I, even I, am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake, and I will not remember your sins. So God's saying, I will not remember your sins. What does that mean? It means that when He forgives us, He doesn't see us in the way He once did. You know, sometimes when someone wrongs us, right? And you think to your mind that when I forgive them, I have to, switch the switch of total amnesia, and all of a sudden things get really nice and dandy, and I'm all good, and I don't remember. Oh, you're the one who tripped me yesterday and beat me up at the locker room. Oh, that's fine, that's okay. I love you too. No, this is not what it is. Forgiveness, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for me to forget what had happened, but I still need to forgive that person, because that starts the healing process. You know, when you cut your finger, what's the first thing that you do? Wash it. And then what do you put? Oh, قبل الباند. يا عم مفيش alcohol. What else? What do you put? Put some polysporin, right? Why do you put some polysporin? Forget the name. I'm not just advertising polysporin. I'm not getting paid for anything. But polysporin, why? It has something that's written on it. Anyone knows? It minimizes scars. It minimizes scars. Sorry? معلش سامحني. Just take it from me. Let's live with it. So it's kind of like forgiveness is the polysporin, right? You have to forgive to start the healing process, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to forget the incident, but that's okay. With God's grace, sitting with Abuna, right? Admitting that you can't forget, Abuna would help you out. Sometimes we say or we think that forgiveness is a problem cover-up. You don't want to forgive someone, it feels like, it will just cover up the problem. And that's not true. That's not true. A lot of times we have to realize that it takes time to change a habit. It takes time to change a habit, right? Someone who, swears a lot, right? And then you tell them, you know what? I'm sorry. They come to you and they say, we're sorry. And you say, no, I can't forgive you. You keep swearing at me. Can't forgive you. Then, does that make sense? No, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. You can take action towards that person by, maybe distancing yourself, but you have to forgive them. And you have to pray for them, right? So that they can change their ways. But you can't just cut them off and say, unless you change, I can't forgive you. You can't say that, right? So we said if we don't forgive, we develop bitterness. It affects our prayer life. It says in Mark 11:25, and whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also forgive you your trespasses. How can I stand in front of God and pray when I'm unforgiving towards someone? It affects our worship as well. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. It affects our witnessing. It affects our giving. It affects our spiritual growth. It affects our health as well. They say, research found that 2 hours immediately after feeling angry, the person's risk of heart attack increases 5-fold. The person's risk of a stroke increases 3-fold. 2 hours after you get angry. So imagine bottling in all this anger, right? And it affects us physically as well. Right? So how do you deal with an unforgiving spirit? If you feel that you're unable to forgive someone, what can we deal with it, practically speaking? Can you give me some examples? The very first thing when you are sick is to oh, come on. What do you do before you get medicine? Go to the doctor, right? You admit that you're sick, right? Some people don't admit that they're sick, right? Their pride prevents them. They think they know everything, right? So the very first thing that we got to do is we have to Admit that we have a problem. Admit that we have an unforgiving spirit, and we need to take it seriously, and we need to assume full responsibility, right? And we need to confess it honestly. Sometimes we fail to confess it honestly. We go and we confess the other person's sin, not our own, right? We need to lay down our anger and we need to ask God for forgiveness. Finally, the best way to understand what had happened with Joseph is to become involved in the story. Do you see yourself as one of the brothers, or do you see yourself as Joseph, who is able to, forgive and not to hold a grudge and not to hold resentment, right? Sometimes we feel that forgiveness, and I'm almost done. Sometimes we feel that forgiveness is, it's like lifting weights, It's I do all the effort. But it's not the case. It's through the grace of God that we're able to forgive, right? And always remember what St. Paul says, it's not I, but Christ who lives in me. So we have to remember, and I'll leave you with this final thought, is that forgiveness is not a work of me. I have to show the will, but God helps me. And God just sees, He just wants to see in me just a glimpse of, will to want to forgive, and He helps me to achieve that. And you'd be surprised. You meet people who've been hurt badly by other people. People who, got their family members harmed. People who've been, family members who, been through act of terrorism, right? And, they went to heaven because of that. Yet they forgive the murderer, they forgive the killer completely. If it's not through the grace of God, then what is? Okay? Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Abuna al-Habib. And it's a great lesson for all of us. A few points I want to share with you. Like, who knows forgiveness is what? Abuna mentioned a few things about forgiveness is. Sorry, Maggie. Love and action. What else? Oh, you didn't expect this, right? I know. Abuna, can you help them? Forgiveness is love and action. What else? What else? Forgiveness is for you, for me. Yes, I need to learn this for myself. Forgiveness is for myself. What else, Ibuna? Did we miss any point? Forgiveness is act of God. Okay.